With a lot of change coming this past offseason for the Chicago Bulls, and there being doubt about how good the Chicago Bulls are going to be next season, what are the things to look forward to the most in the 2024-25 season? We'll talk a little bit about that today, and we're going to dive into the mailbag. All that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Terry Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. So, I want to talk about some of the things to kind of look forward to or look out for a lot when it comes into the next season for the Chicago Bulls. We've been talking a lot about like potential fits, not fits, who could step up, who's not going to step up, trades, but like what are the kind of the bullet points? What are the things that most should be on the radar of Bulls fans getting into the season? And the first thing that we're going to start off with is the first two things that we're going to start off with is first we're going to do Ayo and Kobe, right? The growth of Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White last season was the storyline for the Chicago Bulls last season. Well, it should have been. Of course, the Zach LaVine thing, all those type of things end up becoming the storyline, stuff like that. But like the growth of these two young guys, both drafted by the Chicago Bulls, two of the longer tenured Bulls as well. When you especially with how the roster has changed and further changes that could happen with Zach and eventually Vooch being off this roster. These are your two young pieces that you extended, you gave contract extensions to. Some people even doubted what that was going to look like coming into the season. They're on really reasonable contracts, but they stepped up big time for you in their respective roles. Ayo Dosunmu, his minutes as a starter last season were spectacular. Even without starting, his minutes off the bench were spectacular as well. But everything that Ayo was asked to do last year, he thrived in. Whether it was a bench role, whether it was guarding wing players, playing some wing instead of playing the point guard, which he did his first 2 years, everything. He stepped up in tremendous ways, and him and Kobe White, who we already know. I don't have to go over Kobe's resume again from last season every time we talk about Kobe White. I think people understand how fucking good Kobe White was last season and how much it was a revelation for a lot of the people who've supported Kobe over the years, where some Bulls fans have been calling for him to be traded over the last couple of years. Kobe White's season last year was like a culmination of kind of everything that he's learned over the course of his NBA career all coming together. And so heading into the 2024-25 season, it's really about how do these guys step up with DeMar DeRozan stepping out. Well, I mean, we'll be going away with Alex Caruso going away. Like that, you now have those two players ready to kind of step into their roles respectively. Like Kobe White is going to be the player that's getting a lion's share of the play calls. We see what as far as the ball handling between him and Josh Giddy, but like he is, and Ayo Dosunmu's moving into like an Alex Caruso type role where he's going to be the first guard off the bench. And how he fits well next to Kobe, which we already know, and his time playing next to Josh Giddy, and he's going to be on that bench with the young Modest Bucilis, right? So those players are extremely important, and can Kobe White actually become a star? Like I said, I know some Bulls fans like to argue with me in the comment section on if Kobe's a star or not. One season, again, doesn't make somebody a star to me, but can he step into that star level impact? Then with Ayo Dosunmu, like how does his defense and his growing three-point shooting and scoring prowess, how does that help the Chicago Bulls next year? So really watching these two guys to see what they're going to turn into next year is a huge part of the reason to be excited for the Chicago Bulls next season. Then as well, we go from two players drafted by the Chicago Bulls to the most recent draftee by the Chicago Bulls, Modest Bucilis. Like I think kind of right after the draft, of course, he got a lion's share of the conversation here, even from Bulls fans on voicemails, things like that. But make no mistake about it, like let's not bury the fact that the Bulls lucked into, because it wasn't by their own doing of being aggressive. Maybe they surveyed the market, but they got Modest Bucilis. Somebody projected to go in the top 5 by most mock drafts, falls at number 11 to you. The identity that Modest Bucilis has, and it's not just about Modest Bucilis having this tons of success right away. The thing I'm most interested in watching for this season, when it comes down to it, is how does Modest respond to his failures, right? How does he respond when he gets cooked defensively by a star level player or whatever it is, right? How does he respond when he has a bad shooting night, shooting 30% from the field and doesn't do a lot? Like that's what I'm excited to see, because that's what I think is where you can start picking apart and looking at how a player is going to develop going forward. Well, how do they learn from mistakes? It's easy to play good it's easy to kind of front run when you're just playing good. Like, but much like I'm looking at with Caleb Williams, with Modest, it comes down to how does he learn on the go, right? The things that he does that are exciting, of course, like the dunks are going to be spectacular. The weak side blocks are going to be spectacular. Him getting out in transition with Io and Josh Giddy and Jalen Smith and Kobe at times, that's all going to be exciting to see. But overall, I'm excited for the first time in a while for a rookie. I'm kind of excited to see how they fail, right? Because especially with this team, going younger, right, and maybe not being as good, like how he responds to failures, I think is the biggest part of this story for Modest Bucilis this year. And I'm really excited to see that from Modest Bucilis. Next up, Josh Giddey, of course. Like, what does Josh Giddey really bring to this team? How does he look like now with playing the role that is best suited to him, right? And how well does he mesh with these teammates? Like a Josh Giddey coming into this team and being what people expect him or want him to be is going to be spectacular for this Bulls. I mean, it could fit in so well with helping some of these other young players that we have on this team exceed expectations. So Josh Giddey's how he inserts into this roster is going to be important and fun to watch. And I just can't wait to see how it all unfolds for Josh Giddey. I love the player that Josh Giddey is. You guys know I've talked about a lot. Like Josh Giddey's strengths are going to help this offense so much. Now his limitations, of course, much like with Modest Bucilis, how does Josh Giddey start fixing some of the things he doesn't do well? He's become a more active defender, hasn't necessarily turned into a better defender quite yet. Like in certain areas, yes, he's actually pretty good at guarding point guards near the rim. He's actually pretty good, solid on ball, okay, right? But can he be better in those areas and can he grow in those aspects? And of course, as the three-point shooter, but Josh Giddey is going to put up numbers here. I really don't have any doubts that he's going to put up numbers. It's just how well do those numbers fit into the games that the Bulls are winning, right? And like I said, how he fits in with these other young players. We haven't played with the point guard, the type of Josh Giddey, really ever. Even Lonzo Ball did not have the half-court ball handling duties that Josh Giddey is going to have because a lot of those went to DeMar DeRozan, right? Now, Lonzo Ball was extremely spectacular in transition, and Josh Giddey is hopefully going to bring some of that as well. But Josh is probably going to have even more half-court point guard opportunities than what Lonzo Ball had. And to see that creativity is going to be fun. Right? And we haven't had a point guard like that in quite a while. So that's another thing to kind of look out for. Next up is, I won't call them necessarily negatives, but like what happens with the veterans on this roster? Does Zach LaVine fit in? Is he traded by the end of the season? Nikola Vucevic as well. How does he fit in? Does he get passed up by Jalen Smith? Some rumors around that, right? But watching for those players and what happens with those guys, because that can kind of signify or signal what the Bulls are planning to do going forward. Like at the trade deadline, if after that, Zach and Vooch are still on this team, are we then kind of pushing for a play-in spot? What are we doing, right? So I think the storylines of those guys, not just Zach and Vooch, but also Torrey Craig, Jalen Smith, Javon Carter, right? What are those guys? Well, I say Jalen Smith, Javon Carter, like those guys. What do those guys bring for the Chicago Bulls next season, and how does that help the Bulls get to where they want to get to or get assets back to help contribute to this rebuild that the Bulls have started, right? That's the type of thing to look out for as well. And then one of the more kind of storyline things, more than I think impact on the court we'll see, is of course Lonzo Ball making his return, right? For the people that are fans of Lonzo Ball, for the people that have such fond memories of what Lonzo was when he was here, all those things play into. I'm excited to see what Lonzo can turn into. Like, how does he respond to this injury? How many games does he play? I've said it. I don't think Lonzo's going to play more than 50, 55 games this season, and that's at the top end. But how many minutes does he play on that? How successful is he in the minutes? Regardless of the minutes, regardless of the games, how does Lonzo look? How much can he still impact the game of basketball? And just for the feel-good nature of it as well, right? Like, you have a player like Lonzo who's gotten almost 3 years taken away from him. And how does he bounce back from that? How does he turn into something different? That's what I'm looking for from Lonzo Ball. I'm really excited to just see what that storyline develops into. I'm not too hopeful of the impact that he's going to have, but to see him get back on the court, those things, it feels good for it. And Lonzo, who's worked his ass to get back to the basketball court, worked his ass off, it's just really good that he's now getting to that level, and we'll see how successful he is in that run. And then outside of the players on the court, I'm excited about this new coaching staff, right? How do Dan Craig and Wes Unseld Jr. help the Chicago Bulls team in the area that they've helped other franchises? Development, right? That's what I've said for so long is the most important thing for me this season is development. And so those are two guys that you've brought in here that have been head of player development, with our player development staff being more entrenched now with being here over a year. Those are the things I'm looking excited for. And of course, like fringe things, like how do the young players, Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, how do these guys step up, right? How do these guys round out their game? And Patrick Williams, I struggle to think of one thing with Patrick Williams, but overall, just how much does Patrick Williams show with more opportunities and things? And so that's something that we're looking forward to, and we'll see what turns out in those things. But let me know down below, what are some of the things you're looking forward to the most from the Chicago Bulls team going into next season? Let me know all that down below. With that said, let's go ahead and get into it. It's Saturday, so that means it's mailbag day here. Let's get into these voicemails. This one's from Reginald.
Hey, this is Reginald from Columbus, Georgia. I would just like to, we're talking about which players that you expect to step up in the upcoming season. The player I really think we should be watching is Dalen Terry. I know we don't talk about him a lot because I think we all still look him as that kid who was, jumping up and down the stairs whenever, one of the Bulls players like DeMar makes a big shot or has a big play. And when he gets on the court, he provides a lot of energy, some good defense. But, his shot's not there. Sometimes he plays out of control. One of the things we saw in limited time when Dalen was on the court last year, we noticed that he wasn't playing out of control. He wasn't trying to do a lot of things. He wasn't making, the obvious rookie mistakes that we saw in his first year. We were just watching like, why isn't Dalen Terry getting more minutes? So that was what a lot of us were saying. This year, I expect him to improve a little bit more. And, I know we don't expect to see Lonzo Ball a lot on the court. He's not going to get more than like 12 minutes a game. And he's not going to play back-to-back. But what I want to see Lonzo play with Jalen and Phillip and maybe even Patrick Williams, where he can instruct guys, hey, don't just stand there in the corner or don't just, try to do too much. Move into this position here, or you see me coming and you see a lane, go ahead and make that cut. I'll put the ball in your hand so you can make a direct move to the basket. Or I'll draw some guys off of you. And when you get the open shot, don't hesitate, just take it. That's the things I think we're going to see from a guy like Dalen, who never had a point guard to play with, and just like some of the other guys. So what they need is direction on the court instead of just telling them, hey, just figure it out. I expect most improvement, so that's why I expect the most improvement to come from Dalen Terry than anyone else, because I don't think anyone's going to be expecting it from him. You hope he will in his 14 assists. You hope Kobe and Io is more consistent, or maybe better said, hope should be a set. But yeah, I'm hoping Dalen gets a chance to show what he can do. But what's your opinion? Thanks.
Dalen Terry, I think that's an interesting thing because not a lot of people would say Dalen Terry, right? I think I've seen a lot of comments like people say, oh, well, Dalen could be released, he could be traded. But Dalen Terry is a young player that they knew he was extremely raw. It would be different if like they thought they were getting this player that was going to come in and be able to contribute and he just couldn't stay on the court or whatever. Like they knew Dalen Terry was an extremely raw prospect. So I don't think the Bulls are going to be giving up on that investment anytime soon. It's just how much does Dalen Terry show in this next season, this third year? What does Dalen Terry show? I think that's important to look out for. And let's hope that we get it. Like, Dalen is a player that could be a Swiss Army knife. I don't know if he ever turns into a player that has one great skill, but he doesn't necessarily have to be a productive NBA player. If you can do a little bit of everything, we've seen it. There are roles for those players coming off the bench. Now, if he can be more than that, great, right? I don't want to paint him in a box, but at least, like, just show that you can contribute consistently on the basketball court and earn the opportunity. Some people say, oh, well, the Billy has to play him more. He hasn't played him more. I look at it and say, you got to earn those minutes, right? Now, I'm not saying that Billy Donovan always chooses the best rotations at times. Not saying that at all, but I will say this. If you have not shown something in 3 years to show a coach, oh no, let me make sure I put him on the court, there's a little bit of that on you as well. Now, maybe sometimes coaches just don't believe in guys. Maybe that's the case here. But I do think Dalen Terry, and, you saying like learn from Lonzo and things like that, yeah, he very well could. And so I think Lonzo's voice is something that, hasn't been talked about a lot, of what he can bring to that bench, consistently being there and traveling with the team and things like that. But if that benefits Dalen, who's extremely young and raw player, great. Let's see it. All right, let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Greg.
So today I'm on YouTube, surfing on YouTube, and what do I find? Chris Johnson, the basketball trainer, having runs at the gym, and who I see on them? Lonzo Ball in there getting them on in a 5-on-5 setting against other pros. Getting busy too. I'm talking about getting major buckets. So we really don't know. Is Giddy is gonna be our 5-point guard? Because if Lonzo come in the camp ready, it could be trouble. It could be trouble. Give me your thoughts. Hey, this is real. It's your boy Greg.
Now, I knew somebody was going to call based off that. Listen, there's zero chance Lonzo Ball starting for the Chicago Bulls. You do not start a player who can't play back-to-backs for you, who's going to be on a heavy minutes restriction. And I'm not even going to talk about what he does or does not bring on the court. But just by the nature of that, you don't start those players. Like I said, look at Jonathan Isaac after his 2 years being away from the NBA as kind of a blueprint. Now, if Lonzo could be more than that, great. But like Jonathan Isaac in that first season played 11 minutes per game. Now, he only played, I think, 30 games that season. Hopefully, Lonzo can play more than that. But that's kind of the blueprint if you look at it. Not because the injuries are the same. The injuries are very different. Lonzo's is actually way more severe. But Lonzo, there's no starting point guard controversy. Josh Giddey's going to be the starting point guard. There's none. There's just none. Now, I will say that Lonzo playing was very promising. And let's hope that he can get back on the NBA court for the Bulls. And let's see what he can bring. But there's no point guard controversy. There's none. All right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Simon.
Just me. My name's Simon. I'm a new caller. I was looking at one of y'all little programs. Y'all was talking about how hard the schedule is. But you got to realize the schedule ain't really hard. It's just that we're a bottom team. We're a rebuild team. We just a hard. It's just, because we're a bottom team. So, like last year, but when we first got Ball, somebody predicted us to be a team then, and with Ball with his ability of passing and everything. And now we got Diddy doing it. Who knows what might happen, but good this year, and man, this is my first time calling, and I'm kind of but I'm gonna be on your video all the time.
All right, so I think you have to understand what we mean by hard schedule. Hard schedule isn't just who you play; it's where and how you play them. Off back-to-backs, how much rest do you have? What are the road trips? That's what we say when the Bulls have a hard schedule. This has nothing to do with if the Bulls were even a more promising team. It's still a tough schedule with who they're playing, and the fact that they start off like on the road as much as they do. The fact that first month of the season they play all basically playoff teams out of those 16 games. Like that is a tough schedule. So I think you have to understand what the meaning of a tough schedule is. It's not just who you play, because for the most part, you play every team in the NBA. You know who you're going to play. You play every team in the NBA. It's about how and where you play them, the number of road trips, the fact that the average back-to-backs in the season is a little over 14. The Bulls play 13, so they're higher end of that, right? So it's those type of things when you say a hard schedule. It's not just because of how the Bulls are expected to disappoint. It's also how and where they play those teams at and how that affects momentum. How many road trips you're playing, how many back-to-backs you're doing, that type of thing. That's what makes it hard for the Chicago Bulls, not just who you play. So hopefully that helped a little bit on that one, Simon. But I agree with you in the sense that, listen, yeah, the Bulls are expected to disappoint. It is what it is at this point. Let's see how much of that they can shock and awe and maybe surprise some people. All right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Brian.
Hey, what's up, Hayes? I want to talk about the Josh Giddy and Kobe situation. For one, Giddy got to, prove himself. Everybody, I'm even tired of the hype about him because he haven't played a game yet. You know what I'm saying? I hope he do well, but I think the Bulls would be very stupid to get rid of Kobe. We already know what Kobe can do. We seen flashes as a rookie, of what he can do. He got hurt, had a couple down seasons, but when they put that leadership like DeMar and Caruso around him, that's when he became the player he is now. And I think he still got that in him. He learned a lot and how to be a leader. He was a big voice in the locker room, even over some of the grown, the veterans. You know what I'm saying? He spoke more than the veterans about what's going on with the team. So I think they would be real stupid to get rid of this man. Kobe gonna be Kobe. Whether him, Josh Giddy get along or not, Kobe gonna be Kobe. Even if they get rid of Kobe, he's going to go somewhere and he's going to beat Kobe. We know the type of player he is. He got the attention of the league. He got respect of players because you can't leave them open. You have to guard them. Why would you get rid of a player like that? Josh Giddy got to come in and prove that he can be that type of player. We know he can dish out the ball, you know what I'm saying, to other players, to open players. We get that, but Kobe can do that and score. And he, like I said, he got the attention and the respect from players around the league. You want that player on your team. You want that type of player. But I hope they both get along, because it'll be great to have those two guys like dominate. You know what I'm saying? And they both on your team. You know, so yeah, I hope they get along, man, and you know, and both have great seasons, and they keep both of them. They just need to work it out. They need to work it out. Front office and them two need to work together. But that's all I got to say, man.
Yeah, getting rid of Kobe's not a good idea. I've never understood that. I didn't understand that 3 years ago. I'll understand it less now, right? To me, and I won't say that we can, even as much as I do love Kobe White, saying that we know who he is isn't really a factual statement either. We know the effort that he gives, but he's had one season so far of having the type of impact that he had last season. As I've said, I can't take that as just meaning that it's going to be that every single year. And that's the Bulls can't bet on that either until he shows more consistency. Now, if and when he shows that consistency, absolutely, right? But we know that player is going to be Kobe is going to be a player that goes after it. And he is going to be a player that puts in work every offseason to improve his game. And that's basically all you can ask for. So, you know, I won't say that it's a foregone conclusion because, again, it's not even just about that one player. It's about the roster you're trying to construct as well. And so we'll see what the Bulls do. If I had to bet my money on it, Kobe's staying here. But this is also the Bulls front office that has done some weird things before, and we'll see what happens and comes about it. But ultimately, I'm not worried about Kobe overall. Even if Kobe doesn't necessarily have the impact that he did last season, let's say for some reason he's more of an 18-point per game scorer than closer to 20, right? I'm not really worried about that because Kobe's going to give that effort, and it's more about, all right, now how do we adjust and build around that, especially while he's on a relatively cheap contract. So that's my thought process. You guys can let me know what you guys think on all that down below. That's the show for today. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullsCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See Red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.